Thank you for tuning in to Behind the Scenes at the Hanover Theater. This is Lisa Conant, and I am here today with John. John Trembler is a senior producer with Mills Entertainment. Mills Entertainment is the producer who is bringing us Ina Garten, the Barefoot Contessa, generously sponsored by UMass Medical School. And Ina will be at the Hanover Theater March 27th for a 7:30 show. People are so excited about this. But the big question everybody asks is, what is Ina going to do when she's at the Hanover Theater? So we're going to find that out and much more. Welcome, John.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Lisa.
Absolutely. So just, it's funny, people who aren't in the business, they don't really know how it all works. We get a lot of the calls, oh, make sure you book Wicked, or who would be really great to bring to the Hanover Theater, and then they'll say a name, not realizing all the business that happens, not to be corny, but behind the scenes. And so you're with Mills Entertainment. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what Mills does and a little bit about what you do at Mills?
Sure. Mills Entertainment, we produce touring versions of shows that had been on TV, or they're comic shows, or we put packages together. So basically, what we do is we put a tour together. And for example, I'll give you an example. Somebody's been with us for about 12 years right now. Is Jungle Jack Hanna. So Jack Hanna, everybody sees him on the Letterman Show and Good Morning America, and they know that he's attached to the Columbus Zoo. Well, we had the idea years ago to put Jack on tour, and not just doing colleges and educational stuff, but also going on stage and performing arts centers and presenting his show there. And we've been very successful with that. We do about 40 to 50 dates with Jack every year all across the country, and he loves it, and the audience are going crazy for him. They really enjoy his show.
Well, we had him at the Hanover Theater, and we all loved him, too, and we loved his furry friends that he brought with him.
Yeah, he does. He brings about 15 to 20 animals with him to every show, and 3 to 4 handlers. It's a great show. It is educational as well as a lot of fun and entertaining.
Well, and that's the interesting thing about Mills Entertainment, too. We talked about Mike a little bit on a past segment and how he really brings great reality shows to the theater on tour. He has a really unique way of, going and packaging and promoting and creating these tours. So here we have Ina Garten. So why don't you...
We have Ina Garten. It evolved from... a couple of years ago, we did... my daughter called me and she said, "Have you seen The Cake Boss on TLC?" And I said, "No, I haven't seen it yet." She said, "Dad, you got to watch that show. You're going to love it." So I watched a couple episodes. I called Mike up and I said, "Mike, I said, we have to put this guy on tour." I said, "He'd be great on stage. His personality is fantastic, and maybe we can do some cake decorating and stuff." It went for about a month, and we simmered with it, tossing ideas back and forth. And all of a sudden, we got a call from his agent saying if we were interested in taking a cake decorator out on tour. And Mike passed that at first because he didn't realize it was the same guy I was talking about. So I talked to him again. And the Cake Boss has been with us for about 4 years now. And we do all his live touring and put together a great show for him. It's lively music and so forth. So that's how we produce our shows. We work with a lot of agencies out there that represent talent, and we've got this down pat. It's basically turnkey. If they come to us and say, "Hey, we want to take the captains from The Deadliest Catch out on tour," 3 or 4 captains, they know that we can do that from start to finish, right down to arranging car service for them and putting the show together, making the show look nice, have the set design, and have somebody travel with them. So that's a nice place to be in. So when Ina decided to go out and do very limited dates, she's only going to do about 6 or 7 dates this year. I had worked with her agent before. We produced a couple of David Sedaris' tour, and David Sedaris was represented by this agent. He called me and he goes, "Look," he says, "Ina's going out on tour." He says, "I don't think she should go out with anybody else but Mills Entertainment." And I was all over it. I'm a foodie anyhow. I love the Food Network. I watched. I knew who she was, and my wife's a big fan. And so I said, sure. So we worked out the details of it, and we have seven shows on the books right now for 2013.
That's great. So she's going to basically come to the stage, and she's going to be there, and she's going to talk about food.
She's going to talk about food, her philosophy on food, basically a little bit on her life. I mean, probably a lot of people doesn't know that she used to be a nuclear budget analyst in President Carter's White House.
Wow.
She worked at the White House for President Carter, and she was a budget analyst in the nuclear division. And then she met her husband, Jeffrey, at a very young age, at 16 years old, and they dated for a while and eventually got married. And she bought this little 400-square-foot specialty shop in Hamptons called the Barefoot Contessa, and the owner had named it that because it was one of his favorite old-time movies. She developed it over the next couple of years into a 3,000 square foot conglomerate that everybody went to, whoever went to the Hampton, and then she got tired of that. She said, "You know what? I'm going to write a book. I'm going to write a cookbook," because that's how she learned to cook. She never got any culinary education at all, and she's learned everything that she knows from different cookbooks all around the country. And she said, "I can write one of these books." So she sat down for the next year and wrote it, and it was an instant hit. And she gave up the shop, and she started writing cookbooks, and that's how the Food Network found her, because all of her cookbooks were hitting the bestsellers list on the New York Times, and they said, "Why don't you try doing a show on the Food Network?" And she, as everybody knows, one of the most successful Food Network shows out there.
That's awesome. And, you know, it's really great, too, because audience members are going to be able to ask questions at the end, too. So how does that work?
Right. It starts out with a moderator. We always, whenever we go into town, we get a local moderator, and I believe the moderator...
it's Billy Costa.
Billy Costa, yeah.
Billy Costa.
So Billy will come out, and he'll welcome the audience for coming and so forth, and then he'll bring Ina out. The two of them will sit down, and it'll just be like Ina's being interviewed. You know, how did you get started in the business? You know, what do you like to eat? What you don't like to eat? And you know, just how she became the Barefoot Contessa. She'll discuss that for a while. She'll talk about her food and her philosophy on cooking and how to make it easy. I mean, her catchphrase is "How easy is that?" And she does want to make stuff that the average cook can actually make very easily. And then it's entertaining too. It's not just her philosophy on what to feed, but how to entertain and how to have parties at your house and bring your friends over and family. And then the last portion of that will run for about an hour, and then the last portion of the show, about a half hour, 45 minutes, will be strictly questions with the audience.
Oh, how fun.
So the audience will be able to ask her anything they want.
Oh, and I know that you guys are total pros at this, you know, from the Deadliest Catch, like you said, the Pawn Stars.
We did the Deadliest Catch. We did Cesar Millan. We do all Cesar Millan dates for the past couple of years, and he does a dog training demonstration as well as Q&A with the audience.
I love him.
Talks about his life. Yeah, that's a great show.
The thing that's interesting, too, about Mills Entertainment is, okay, so Mike started this, and we had a chance to talk a little bit before we started the interview, and you've known him. You were friends with him when he started this business, you said, 15 years ago?
Right, he started the business about 15 years ago. He was just getting out of college. He was a very young guy, and he decided he wanted to, he always loved the entertainment business. He wanted to promote a show. And he lives up in Saratoga, the Schenectady, Albany area, and he used to go to Proctor's Theater all the time. And we were standing in line, my wife and I, and he was with a friend going into Caesar's to see a show in Las Vegas, and just started chatting with him, you know, while we're standing there in line waiting to get in there. And he asked what I did, and I told him, and he goes, "Oh man," he said, "Do you ever do?" He was really into like comedy and magic and so forth, live shows for that. He said, "Do you ever do any comedy or magic?" And I said, "Well, we just had Penn and Teller at our theater," and he was just going nuts. He said, "I'd love to bring them in and promote them." So I put him in touch with the Penn and Teller's manager out in Vegas, and connected the two dots there, and he presented them in Proctor's, and it was a big success for him, and he hit the ground running. So I continued working at the State Theater Center for the Arts in Easton, Pennsylvania, where I worked for 13 years. And we used to brainstorm. He used to call me all the time, or I used to go up. Sometimes we went up and visited each other and so forth. And we did a lot of brainstorming on what shows to develop, and then he started asking me to start working for him full time. And at first, I thought I had to move up there because I work out of my home in Pennsylvania right now, and I didn't want to move. I didn't want to uproot my wife from her career and so forth. And so he said, "No, I'll set you up at your home." So it worked out fine. I've been with him for almost 8 years now.
How perfect is that? Oh, wait, in Ina's words, how easy is that?
How easy is that?
How easy is that? That's great. It's always changing. You know, I'm sure that you've seen a lot of changes in the last 7 years, the last 10 years, the last 15 years. What do you think is the most marked difference?
When I first started working, everything that we did, all the shows that we did, we would basically, they were sold in-house. And that means that like a theater like the Hanover would come to us and they would buy a show. They'd offer us a price for a show, and we would sign the agreement, and then we'd bring the show to them. With the horrible turn of events with the economy, everybody was being very, very conservative on what they were paying and how many shows they were bringing in, and theaters were watching closely because they didn't want to close their doors. And we decided if we were going to continue in business, we would have to start promoting and co-promoting our own shows. And that means that we would go in, we would rent the building, and we would advertise ourselves, and if we made money, we made money. If we lost money, we lost money. the profit or loss is all on us. And we probably, to this day, do about 80% of that, either co-promote with the building, which means that we work with the venue and we share in the profit or loss, or we just go straight in and rent the building upright and present it ourselves. So that was the biggest change economically for the company. And our team went from 3. When I started working for Mike, he just had one girl working for him, and our team went from 3 to about, I think it's 11 now, 11 or 12.
Wow. Yeah. I know, it is amazing just what I've seen in the last 5 years. I've really only been in this business for 5 years, but it is fascinating, the whole business model and the risk that's involved versus, the Hanover Theater is a nonprofit as well. So that means that sometimes we're able to take a risk or do a co-promotion which has a whole different expectation. Obviously not with Mills Entertainment. Mills Entertainment, we're expecting that Ina's show is going to sell out, right? So people need to buy their tickets. That's a whole different ball game than a chamber event or a classical pianist who might come. 2,300 seats, that's a lot of seats. So you probably have to look at your theaters and your locations very carefully. And, one of our catchphrases at the Hanover Theater is there's something for everyone, but that means that we put together a lot of different deals and the rentals versus the co-promotions, and it's a lot more than people think when they say, so when are you going to get Wicked?
Yes, exactly. The #1 touring Broadway show between that and Book of Mormon. I mean, you really, since they went out, I don't even think they're taking single weeks. I think they're taking multiple weeks. So you'd have to bring the show in for 3 or 4 weeks. When they first leave Broadway and go out, they're sitting down in Denver and Boston and San Francisco. They sit down for 3 or 4 weeks, and then they eventually, as the popularity wears off, they'll go down to single weeks, and then they'll go down to split weeks, where you can have it at the beginning of the week or at the end of the week, and they tour it that way. But they're very expensive shows to bring in. They're extremely expensive. The labor crews are huge. The labor costs are huge, and you have to really be very careful when you're running a nonprofit organization like yourself that you make the right decisions and you don't run out of money.
And Troy is doing a really great job helping to obviously decide which shows come in and to work with what we have available to us, because let's face facts, we're about to celebrate our 5th anniversary. So we've been in this business. We had our grand opening 5 years ago, and in that 5 years we've been able to rank in the top 50 theaters in the world consistently for 3 years now, and we're now in the full week runs of some of the Broadway shows, but we're not quite ready for the Wickeds yet. But what's really nice is we are totally ready for the Ina Gardens. We are totally ready for these really cool niche shows that honestly I think a lot of people are interested in meeting the stars and the celebrities they see on TV. TV is the place where people want to be able to connect in person, and your organization, your company helps make that happen. So that's great.
We try to fill that void of people who watch the reality TV shows and the different cooking shows and so forth, like the Cake Boss, Ina Garden, Caesar Milan, Deadliest Catch, and Take It. But we also have comedy packages that go out. With Tony and Tina's Wedding, the national tour of that has been with us for about 7 years now, and so we do all their touring dates. So it works out really well. I love working with Troy. We love the location of Rooster because it does bleed into that Boston market a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's just the location of it, and he's wonderful to work with. And we have what we call them internally. We call them our A markets. Whenever we have something new, something that we're just because we're always working on 10 to 15 things in the background that we're ready to say, okay, let's roll this out.
Yeah.
And whenever we are ready to roll it out, we go to our A markets, which is Worcester and Pittsburgh and Milwaukee, and we know those venues really well. We know if they want to work with us. They have the vision that we had that we could do something with this. And right now, we're getting very close. It's not a done deal yet, so I shouldn't even be talking about it. We're getting very close to putting the Dance Moms out on tour.
Oh my God! Sign us up, right? Absolutely. Can you imagine that would sell out? And I don't usually say that about very much, but honest to God, that is hot. Would Abby come with them? That's the question.
Right now, we're toying with a version with her and without her. We think that most of the dates we're going to do are going to be without her. But if we have the kids dancing on stage and then have the mothers do a Q&A with the audience and talk about, their relationship with Abby. I don't think Abby's needed to be there.
You don't need Abby.
But,
it's true.
Yeah, and if Abby was there, the price of the tickets would be a lot more than if she wasn't there. So
Right, because we had to keep it reasonable. That's the other thing. We can't charge $250.
Well, the moms want to bring their daughters to come see the show, sure.
Right,
sure.
The whole studio's going to come, and then the studio teachers are going to be like, oh, did you see that? Oh, our dance moms aren't like that. They all get along.
Yeah. We're very close. That's not official yet, and it's not confirmed, but we're very close. Mike's been in negotiations with the network, and it looks like we're going to make it happen very shortly.
Well, that's exciting. So we'll stay tuned for that. In the meantime, we're going to be completely pumped up about Ina. I cannot even begin to tell you how many of my friends, when they found out that she was coming to the Hanover Theater, were excited beyond belief. And their kids are excited. And so that's the nice thing about this show as well, is that it's family-friendly for sure.
Well, that's the thing. It's for all ages, and a lot of our shows, like I was talking about Jack Han, I mean, he does 40 to 50 dates a year. Ina's doing a handful of dates. She might do 10 this year. She might go out once a month or once every 6 weeks. So the opportunity to see her in Worcester is something that's going to be very special.
Well, I can't wait.
Grab your tickets now.
I know, right? And so the place for people to find out more information, obviously, they can go to our website, the Hanover Theater. We spell theater with an RE.org. They can call our box office at 877-571-SHOW. And we are so pleased to have you today. We can't wait to see what the show brings. And everybody, I hope you have a great day. Thanks again for joining me, John. We'll talk to you soon.